Good morning and welcome to today's webinar, Introduction to CMMS Key Performance Indicators. I'm Barbara van der Walt, the Sales and Marketing Manager for Eagle Technology. We're a company that has been in business for over 30 years in developing computerized maintenance management solutions and enterprise asset management for worldwide facilities and manufacturing markets. In today's webinar, we're going to touch some of the following areas. What are key performance indicators, the different types that are used in maintenance, benefits of using KPIs in your maintenance department, key performance indicator reports and dashboards, and key performance indicating best practices. So there is going to be time at the end to answer some questions, so feel free to ask them as we progress. And we'll also be recording this webinar, which we'll share with you once it's available online. So I'm going to introduce our presenter today. His name is Harry Cohol. Harry is a lifetime member and past president of the Wisconsin Association of Computer Crime Investigation. He has been in the IT and IT consulting for over 35 years, starting in the U.S. Air Force. And Harry has joined Eagle Technology in June 2006 and is currently the Vice President of Business Development. So Harry, I'm going to hand over to you.
Hello.
Hi, yes, Harry, can you please, you can continue. We're ready for you.
Okay, I lost audio there for a minute.
That's not a problem.
Okay, well, welcome everybody. And this morning we're going to talk about key performance indicators. It's a term that is thrown around freely, and yet it needs a lot of definition. So let's talk about definition. Key performance indicators are, you can have a key performance indicator between two companies that would be called the same thing, but are actually measured differently. So as an example, a key performance indicator like mean time between failure. Some companies would measure that as an occurrence that has to happen where there's at least 3 or more failures in order to get a mean time. Other companies would measure it and say, well, there's going to be a specific number of failures in a specific time frame before I measure it as a mean time. So defining a KPI is going to be absolutely critical and can be very personal to your business. The second thing is that in tracking KPIs, you need to make sure that there's consistent processes associated with the collection of data. One of the failures of a lot of systems, processes related to CMMS is the ability to track data on a consistent basis, okay? In other words, how are you tracking a downtime? Is everybody reporting it the same way? Are they putting their time against it and recording it as a downtime? Or another tracking issue would be, I want to identify PMs that are created as a result of a PM. In other words, I did what I was supposed to do on a normal PM, but I found deeper problems. And so I've created a PM to go in and fix before it breaks. So there's all sorts of process-related issues that need to be tied to KPIs. You need to review the data. It's one thing to collect information in a system, but more importantly, when you're tracking it, you need to review it because there will be things that you'll find because of people and because of normal human turnover and things like that, that you will have inconsistencies, and needs to be an ongoing management of quality of data and consistency of data related to whatever you're going to track. You also need to plan. The question comes up many times of, well, you know, mean time between failure. Everybody wants to know what the mean time between failure is on something. Well, is that the real question? Is that the real issue that you want to track? Or is it the frequency of PMs versus the frequency of failures? In other words, plan and review, what are you measuring and why? I can set up a KPI to show mean time between failure, and that's good information potentially, but the real question might be is, if I did PMs more frequently, could I fix that? Or am I not doing PMs? Am I not getting to my PMs? And as a result, I'm having failures. So the planning and the review and the organization of what am I tracking and why is going to be very, very critical in how we approach key performance indicators. And then finally, taking action. You know, to collect information and not do anything about it is a sin. So it's absolutely critical that we would take action to improve or manage the improvement of the things that we're measuring. I have different clients in different businesses that have different KPIs. In the facility business, for example, one of the things you might want to measure is the time that between a service request comes in and the time that you complete that service request and get the survey potentially back from the customer on the quality of the work that the technician did. Was it timely? Did they leave the area neat and things like that? So surveys can be part of key performance indicators too. But in the facility management side, you know, mean time between failure isn't as critical potentially in a situation like a production line as customer service. Did I service them on time? Were they happy? What did it cost? What does the average too hot, too cold temperature cost me? Okay. I worked with a municipality where hot cold costs were their number one maintenance call for service, right? And they measured the number of hot cold calls and the cost of them. But then more importantly, one of the things that they began to analyze was the fact that, well, people had heaters in certain areas, and some people had refrigerators, and some people had you know, other things plugged in that weren't technically authorized. And they started to develop policies. In other words, they took action to go in and fix the problem of the hot cold call. They also wanted to measure how many times do I have a hot cold call to this room. In a hospital environment, I had a client that measured the fact that they had a hot cold call. Okay, well, the first time the technician went in and assumed that it might be a thermometer problem, so they replaced the control on the wall for $75 or $80 and assumed that the problem was fixed. The next time they get a hot cold call to that room, it's critical that the next technician realize that somebody did the replacement of the thermostat, but in this particular case, they had no system in place. So the next technician went in and replaced the thermostat. And then they got another hot cold call and they replaced the thermostat. And this happened 5 times in the same room at $75 a thermostat. And it wasn't the thermostat at all. It turned out there was a deeper issue that was causing the problem. So the value of KPIs come in the review, the planning, and the action that you take with them. We can talk about benefits of KPIs, but the key performance indicator is only good if you do something with it. Just collecting data by itself, not managing the quality of the input, not managing the source, the processes associated with it, yield no benefit whatsoever. But there can be great benefits associated with KPIs if you take the full circle of action. In other words, you've defined why you're measuring, you're tracking the consistency, the quality of the data, you review it to make sure that it's consistent and there's quality associated with it, you plan and review and take action against that KPI, and then you will have great benefit. We can talk about different reports and dashboards. Everybody wants to see things summarized so that they're easy to review. And of course, Proteus has a significant number of KPIs relating to the system. We have things like how many PMs versus DMs did I do, and how many PMs are on time and complete, and how many are overdue. I know everybody finishes all of their PMs on time and it's never a problem, tongue in cheek, he says, but in reality, I know for a fact that we have many, many clients that have not enough resources to get all the PMs done in the time frame that they're scheduled. And again, that's a metric that you want to look at and evaluate. Why am I doing the PM? If I did it, does it keep the system up and running more effectively? If I don't do the PM, if I run to failure, what happens? What's the cost associated with that? There's different costs and different effects associated with different pieces of equipment. Safety is an absolutely critical thing, regardless of the industry that you're in, and to be able to measure regulatory compliance. In other words, if I'm in a warehouse business or if I'm in a production business and I've got some shipping docks, have I checked my dock locks daily? Do I do the weekly and the monthly and the quarterly maintenance on those dock locks, or do I ensure that I have a contractor doing that work? And do I have the reports associated with that work attached to my work order so that I can show anybody, should there be an issue, that in fact this has been taken care of? So reports and dashboards are absolutely a critical part, and they are forms of key performance indicators. We want to talk about best practices. Depending on the particular business that you're in, whether you're in facilities related to manufacturing, if you're in facilities related to warehousing, distribution, if you're in an office building, or any other type of business, government agency, it's absolutely critical that you know what the best practices for your industry are. And again, the key performance indicators relating to your industry are things that you should be looking at. As an example, if you're in the pharma business, you know, to be able to show that your machines are properly calibrated, that they have been tested at the appropriate levels and recalibrated and are measuring correctly. is an absolutely critical best practice. On the same hand, if you're in warehouse distribution, being able to show on-time deliveries, being able to show safety, compliance, and things like that are all part of best practices. And again, when we think about key performance indicators, we want to make sure that we align our key performance indicators with what best practices our industry has established or any regulatory body has established for us. So in summary, we want to look at, how should this data be represented from a best practice standpoint? Does a graph tell me what I need to know? Should it be a line chart, a bar chart, a scatter graph? How do I want to represent the data is one of the key decisions that one would have to make relating to the information that you're going to keep in relationship to a key performance indicator. Statistics, you can represent things in different formats, and one format will show you or appear to show you information that leads one way, and you can show the same information that would tend to lead in a different direction. So how you represent your data in your key performance indicator is another consideration, so that everyone in your organization that needs to see that information and work with it and understand it is going to view it from the correct perspective. Okay, a lot of the key performance indicators, people use the green, yellow, red concept, and that's a great concept to incorporate. Again, the scale, the size of the chart, the information that's represented, you have to really evaluate, is it really telling us what we need to know in order to effectively run our business? Again, the number of PMs that I do is one measurement that I could report, but if I have downtime that's excessive, regardless of the number of PMs that I'm doing, that's not representing what I need to from a company perspective. So the consideration of what am I showing, how am I showing it, what's the effect? Okay, go back to that analyze and review step. It's very critical that you really, let's say I've done 500 PMs this month. That's great. I have 3 guys that did them, but I've got, 100 hours of downtime and stuff didn't get out the door. So what are you measuring and why is the real critical question when it comes to KPI analysis. So we're going to go in depth on different KPIs in our next webinar. We're going to be talking about specific KPIs, specific measurements, things that clients measure, why they measure them, the effect of them, the measurement, and so forth. But today, again, I want to go back to this first slide here. We need to think about defining a KPI, tracking it. Is the data coming in consistently? Are we making sure that that data is accurate and timely? So we review it. Look at our plan. Is this data that we're collecting an important thing to collect? The key thing is that over time, this will change. Okay, so we constantly need to be looking at the planning and action side and review here, these last three steps, to make sure that what we're doing and what we're tracking makes sense for the company, because businesses change, regulations change. So we need to make sure that our key performance indicators keep step with what we need to measure and manage. So again, our next webinar will go into depth on specific KPIs, some of the variances in how people manage and measure them. As I said, one of the things that one of our clients measures is the number of PMs that are created as a result of a regular PM. So I do my weekly cleanup or my weekly inspection, but when I do that, I find that there are things that are going to happen if I don't fix the machine. So I schedule an in-depth PM to take care of that problem before the system goes down. So different companies are going to measure different things and want to measure different reasons for measuring things. And I think as we go through in our next webinar in 2 weeks and talk about different KPIs, you'll get some idea, and we'll be able to answer your questions either online or offline about, does this KPI make sense for me? Does it make sense for my company? Am I measuring it the right way? Am I getting good data to measure it? And am I using that data effectively? Am I reviewing it, planning it? You know, if I have all my PMs are done, but I've got a ton of downtime, what am I doing right or wrong, right? If I'm doing my PMs, but I'm taking the machines down and production's not getting out the door, that's an issue as well. So we'll go into depth on specific KPIs, alternatives, and hopefully you'll find the session coming up in 2 weeks very important to you. But if you just take this slide right here and think about it, define your KPI. I've used a term in the past that said key performance indicators are sort of like underwear. They're sort of personal. Somebody else's doesn't necessarily fit you, nor do you want to wear it. But how you define your KPI, track it, review it, plan, and take action against it. This circle right here is really what is going to define the quality of your key performance indicator reporting. It'll define how you should be collecting data, what data you should be collecting, and the processes associated with the collection of that data. So at this time, if there's any questions, in general, I'll be happy to take them. Otherwise, I'm looking forward to you attending our March 24th, I believe it is, webinar as a follow-up.
Thank you, Harry. That's actually correct. But it's March 28th. We'll send a reminder out on that. And just to remind everybody else, it's going to be a much more visual presentation on the 28th, where Harry just spoke about looking at in-depth and what types. We're going to actually be looking at actual examples of KPIs. So make sure that you don't miss that webinar. We'll be sharing the link again with you guys so you can register if you haven't registered for it yet. I currently don't see any questions coming through, but if you guys want to ask any questions, feel free to email us. Harry, if we go to the last slide, it's available. The contact information for everybody's right there. Webinars at eaglecmms.com, or you can visit our site at www.eaglecmms.com. We have a lot of information there, and the team at Eagle is always willing to work with potential customers or current customers to provide you the most relevant information towards your company's goals. Thank you for attending the webinar. Thank you, Harry, for your time.
Thank you very much.